Hello and welcome to Jehovah Sons of Saints. This is Michael A. Hopkins speaking. Today we're going to talk about how much debt these inmates get into debt when they're in prison, and how when they get out they can't pay off the debt, and they can't get a job because of their record, and they can't get food stamps if they have a drug charge. So therefore they don't have no food and they have no job, and they can't pay their debt, and they go back to prison because of that. Um, that there's one prisoner that works for 42 cents an hour. That's 42 cents times 40 times 52 weeks in a year. He only makes $873 in a year working for the prison. And these prisons charge anywhere from uh, starting at $23,000 all the way up to $300,000 per inmate. That's what the prisons charge for having the inmate in there. And then they're uh, but anyway, we'll go ahead and start the program here.
Mike's debt starts accumulating the day he's arrested. His bail? Costs will be here. To get out of jail, Mike has to pay 10%. His girlfriend scrapes it together by pawning her jewelry. That's the running total. It'll be up here. In 3 minutes, you'll see how this number builds into an insurmountable debt. Next, Mike's lawyer. The Constitution guarantees Mike a public defender, but it says nothing about it being free. And don't forget the $40 filing charge.
The court hereby sentences you to a term of incarceration.
Mike gets a 5 to 6 year sentence and a bill for some ridiculous court costs, including fees for court automation and document storage. He also gets hit with mandatory contributions to the Jail Medical Costs Fund, the State Police Operations Assistance Fund, and a bunch of other funds he's never heard of. Just a reminder, these charges are not the fines people pay for their crimes. These are predatory administrative fees that lurk in the margins of the judiciary process. To pay down his debt, Mike lands a job in the prison kitchen. Unfortunately, he only gets paid 42 cents an hour. If he continues to work for 5 years in this kitchen, he'll earn $4,368. But the prison garnishes the rest to pay down his fees and fines, including, get this, his room and...
I'm going to stop for just a second. She calculated the cost by 5 years, but he works for 42 cents an hour, so 42 cents times 40 times 52 weeks in a year. That's $873 he makes in a year in order to try to pay these costs off.
board. No joke, in many states, prisoners can be charged for their accommodations. Mike's fee works out to about 60 cents a day. 60 cents times 300...
See, did you hear that? Some prisons charge for their accommodations. They already make millions of dollars off these prisoners from what they charge, but they want to charge the prisoners for being there too. Are you kidding me? This is entrapment, because when you're making profits off an individual sitting in a concrete box, say if I took my neighbor and went over to my neighbor as an undercover and I sold him some drugs, and then I arrest him because he has drugs and doing drugs, and I put him in a concrete box in my house. Isn't that kind of like Satan? I mean, Satan tempts people. That's what undercovers do. They tempt you to do something wrong so they can entrap you. That's just like Satan wants to drag everybody down to hell with him. This is just how it works. Would you put your neighbor in a concrete box and make them work for 42 cents an hour and pay for the accommodations too? And anyway.
65 days in a year, times 5 years. To keep sane, he stays in touch with his girlfriend and son. At 14 cents a minute, 4 30-minute calls a week cost Mike about $17, or $4,368 across a 5-year sentence. Video calls? No way. Those are more. Mike can't afford them. But let's be real. His girlfriend is footing the bill. She makes a monthly deposit into Mike's prison account. Of course, there's a transfer fee for those too. To keep the money flowing, she moves in with her mom and takes a second job at the dollar store. In fact, these costs are largely shouldered by family members, and many of them go into debt trying to keep up. Mike spends that money at the commissary on stuff the prison never seems to provide enough of. Everything is sold at a markup. And then there's the food. Forget that it's inedible. It's never enough. So Mike supplements meals with more food, also overpriced, from the commissary. When Mike suffers a bad fall on the job, he has to fork over a copay for each visit. Many prisoners
See that they say that they have to have funding for nurses and things like that too, and she just said they have to pay a copay at this prison anyway. Um, it's not free. Uh, so it only costs $15,000 people to house one person in prison. Yet they charge $23,000 in Arkansas, $106,000 in California, and they charge $115,000 per inmate in New York.
choose to go without care rather than pay money they don't have. To state the obvious, there's no comparison shopping here. Mike can't choose where to eat, where to shop, or what doctor to see. He is, you might say, a captive audience. But after 5 years, Mike gets some good news. He's getting out. But still, the fees keep accumulating. His parole officer slaps on a monitoring bracelet. Setup fee, daily use fee, monthly supervision fee. He's supposed to wear it for a year. Mike is out, but his trip through the criminal justice system has cost him more than 19 grand, not including thousands more in fines and restitution. He's drowning in debt, and he can't find an employer willing to hire someone with a criminal record. He's getting desperate. Maybe you think Mike got what he deserved, and his family too. And maybe you think that the financial burden is a reasonable part of his punishment. But Mike's problems are society's problems.
I don't know how I'm ever going to pay for all this stuff in my whole life. I feel like they've set me up for failure.
I have been trying to get this paid off since 2014.
The first thing that I have to focus on when I go back into society is how I'm gonna pay my debts and my fines.
A lot of people say that's how the system gets you. You know, when you're in the system, you're trapped and stuck in the system.
I definitely feel trapped.
Oh, it's frustrating. It's so frustrating.
You see how all of them keep saying they feel entrapped? It is an entrapment because, like I said, the undercovers with drugs anyway, they entrap you because would you want to undercover some drugs to your kids, and your kid does the drugs and overdoses and dies, but you would never find out who actually sold the drugs because it was undercover. But the undercovers sell drugs to everyone. They don't care.
Frustrating. I've been stuck like this for 7 years.
Debt destroys credit. Debt makes it much harder to rent an apartment, to find a job, to pay child support, and put food on the table.
My grandfather is about 80 years old. He's had to go back to work to help me pay my court fees and fines. And as well as my grandmother, she has been using her Social Security check to help out as well.
You would literally, once you get released, I mean, you have your court fines and fees that you have to cover. Failure to pay those, you're almost obligated to end up back in here and serve time for not paying those. So it's almost like a double jeopardy.
Many people can end up getting dragged back to prison for failure to pay their criminal justice debt.
See, and failure to pay the debt they accumulated while they was locked up because they was unable to work. They probably would have tried to pay their debt if they was out in society and had a job and was able to try to pay the debt, but they're locked behind bars. This actually happened to my brother too. He went to prison for not paying his child support, and then when he got out of prison, they rearrested him for not paying child support while in prison. So he got locked up again. So that doesn't make any sense. How's he supposed to pay child support when he's locked up in prison? And he gets out of prison and they lock him up again for not paying child support while he was locked up in prison? Makes no sense to me. God bless. I hope you enjoyed.